So, hi everybody. I'm Jackie Eden. I'm from the Pasco Economic Development Council Smart Start Incubator Program. Today, we're going to be talking about conflict reduction strategies. And here's a little bit about myself. I was at PHSC, Pasco Hernando State College, for about 23 years. I'm here at the PDC for about 2 months now. So it's been a fun transitioning, still learning lots of new things. I'm in the Holiday Center in Amskills. If you want to stop in and say hello, I'll give you a tour of the place. But welcome. Today we'll talk a little bit about conflict reduction strategies. Feel free to ask questions, and you can raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask a question. So, although we are most likely to think of conflict as negative, conflict can also result in positive outcomes. Conflict can bring about necessary changes. When conflict serves as a signal that a problem exists, it can stimulate a creative response. Now, I know many of us don't like conflict, as I myself do not, but it's important to try to deal with it before it creates more problems. Discussing things with someone right away, it will usually help lower the problem rather than just ignoring it for a while and hoping it goes away. And as you probably know, a lot of times it can fester if we do that. So it's really not a good idea to do that. So today we'll talk about some ways and we can work with it. So what is the last cause of your conflict at work? Most people's conflict at work comes from a lack of resources or personality conflict, jealousy, interpretation of uneven workloads. Sometimes you don't really know why there's a conflict, right? Sometimes you just feel it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can identify why, and of course there's more than just this list. But here's some of the things that causes conflicts at work. And most of the time, a lot of it leads from a lack of resources, giving the budget to one department and not enough budget to another department. So that's kind of how that works. So conflict resolution is crucial in the workplace because if you leave that unchecked, conflict can lead to bad decisions, bullying, harassment, wasted talent, high absenteeism, and increased staff turnover. So effective conflict resolutions can help maintain a positive work environment, promoting collaboration and ensure issues are addressed before they escalate. Again, it's important to address it before it gets worse. The Carnegie Foundation discovered that to be successful on the job, relational skills are far more important than knowledge. So that means that 15% of a person's success is determined by the job knowledge and technical skills. Most of it comes from 85% is an individual's attitude and ability to relate to other people. So this is huge. It's huge. You want to make sure that you can get along with others and that you can professionally get out of conflicts in as best of a manner as possible. So conflicts fall into two categories. A lot of times it's a personality conflict, or it's a substantive conflict, which is task related, like the decisions leaders make, the performance of a team leader, or the company's directions, but not a personality conflict. So it falls into two different categories. It is the manager's responsibility to set the tone. So writing specific job descriptions, creating a framework for how discussions are run, noting the hierarchy and who is responsible for what. There's a lot of conflict when someone at work thinks that they should be doing something, and then someone at work thinks that another person thinks that they should be doing it, or vice versa. I think somebody else should do it, and then that person thinks I should be doing. So by making it real clear as to who is responsible for what, you're going to really decrease conflicts. Defining proper business practices, choosing which project management tools to use, helping with team building and leadership development. Team building is important, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on as well. But trying to keep a nice, strong team. Yes, you want to have productivity and you want to make sure that everyone's doing a good job. But it's important to have some team building time in there a little bit here and there, just to create some fun and some strong bonds within your team is important too. And that's going to help you decrease conflicts as well in the future. So what causes conflict? Unclear responsibilities. Again, we talked a little bit about this one earlier. Competition for resources. So time, money, materials. My department may not get any money. Other departments get more money. That really is frustrating. And then sometimes we take it out on our coworkers. And then those competition for resources can really lead to a lot of conflict. Different interests. Some people are focused on their department goal, their organizational goal, and then other people are just really trying to get more things on their resume, and the big focus is themselves, and sometimes that can be really, really obvious to others, so that can create some conflict. How can a manager or even a coworker, if there's a way that you can help out as well, foster transparent communication culture, setting clear expectations, defining roles and responsibilities, and promoting team building activities? These are ways to decrease conflict in your team and in your coworkers. All right, so what we did at PHSC for many meetings, we take the first few minutes and have an icebreaker discussion, or take 20 minutes once in a while during a group meeting you can have a compliment circle. This is where you encourage your team to express appreciation to one another. So you turn around to the person next to you, to your right or to your left, and you say something nice about their work, their processes, how the person likes to communicate with them, or however it is, but you give your coworker a compliment. You can have a brainstorming session, have a team building where the work can be focused. The key is to make these brainstorming sessions less about the day-to-day and more about bigger team goals. So when you're doing goals for the department or for your team, have a brainstorming session, have some goals that you decide together. Whenever people feel like they're included in the decision, then they're going to be happier about what those decisions are. They're going to have more of a buy-in, and they're going to work harder and stay focused and do a better job in meeting those goals because they had input. And that's really important, to give your team members time to put some input. All right, so what affects your conflict resolution style? So it's your upbringing, how you were raised. Did your family and you talk about conflict? If there's a problem, were you allowed to talk about it? Did you guys just sweep it under the rug? My family, we swept it under the rug. What you learned through examples set by your parents, teachers, and peers. So if you didn't have that upbringing with dealing with conflicts, then now is a great time to start practicing. I started practicing just a few years ago myself. It's never too late. It was very uncomfortable for me to deal with conflict, to bring it. I'm a people pleaser. But it's important to professionally and kindly reach out to someone if there's a misunderstanding. That way you can clear it up right away and it doesn't lead to bigger problems. What other things affects your conflict resolution style is your life experiences, how you've dealt with it in the past, and what those experiences have taught you. So the first thing we want to do is don't ignore it. Again, it's important to talk to someone right away. Try not to get defensive. Don't blame it on someone else. These are called ways of dealing with conflict. So that's avoiding, competing, collaborative, compromising. So avoiding is when people just ignore it or withdraw from the conflict. I used to be this way, not so much as avoiding, but I give somebody the benefit of the doubt. Oh, they're having a bad day, some rose-colored glasses. And that really doesn't work. It just escalates the problem. So it's really important, again, that you talk to someone quickly, especially if it's just a misunderstanding. Avoiding, people choose this method when the discomfort of confrontation exceeds the potential reward of resolution of the conflict. Well, this might seem easy to accommodate for the facilitator. When conflict is avoided, nothing is resolved. It just builds and builds and builds, right? Competing resolution style is competing is used by people who go into conflict planning to win. They're assertive and not cooperative. So this is when it's got to be their way. Characterized by assumptions that one side wins and everyone else loses. Competing might work in sports or war, but it's not a good strategy for group solving. Collaborating is a method used when people are both assertive and cooperative. A group may learn to allow each participant to make a contribution with the possibility of co-creating a shared solution that everyone can support. Compromising is another strategy where participants are partially assertive and cooperative. Everyone gives up a little bit of what they want, but no one gets everything they want, right? So everybody gives up a little bit. So another few more tips is, don't assume that people readily see the picture you're presenting. Try making the same point a different way if you are talking to someone. Talk about your feelings before you get angry. Don't raise your voice. It's amazing how issues can be resolved in a whisper. So that's my new strategy of dealing with conflict. It's new for me, but I found that it has been working for me. So for example, I'm Italian and Spanish, so sometimes my voice might get a hair louder, and it's not that I'm being loud, it's just my culture. I'm a little louder. So if I'm talking to my husband or someone at work, I make it a really big point to sort of try to whisper so that person doesn't think I'm being too loud to them. And I think that is really helping me. So try to whisper a little bit. And then they have to really pay attention to what you're saying. And then you're not going to be confused as, yelling at them. So try to bring it down to whisper. I'm finding that this is really working well for me lately. And I've loved the research on that. So other things that you can do to manage the conflict is, if you're a manager, you want to make sure that you set the proper tone for the meeting. You're going to call in the parties together in a neutral area, free of distractions. Make sure that you try to sit in a circular table, that it's not so much, for example, let's say you and one of the persons is sitting on the other side against the other person. It's going to make it seem like it's 2 against 1. So you want to be real careful in how you sit so that you look like you're the neutral party. And that's real important. If y'all can go to the lunchroom and have a coffee, or if you can make it a more neutral location, that might also help as well. Make sure that you don't show bias towards an individual's point of view. If you show sympathy with one of the parties, the other will lose trust in the process and stop sharing openly. You definitely want to try to listen to all of what is being said. Do some research if you have to, just because it's important to do research, and you don't just automatically believe someone, even if they're usually a truthful person. That doesn't mean that they're being truthful this time. So make sure that you do a little research before you take somebody's side on anything. You want to choose your timing when you talk to someone about the conflict. Make sure you're not aggravated. Make sure you're not tired, that you're not cranky, that your tone is good. Communication is really important. Body language is really important. I've been to a couple of meetings where people are just eye rolling and they have their legs crossed, their arms crossed. It's not gonna get any better if people are having really negative body language. So it's important that everybody tries to be in the best mood possible. Everybody needs to just calm down, wait a few days if you need to. Like I said, go to a coffee shop, go to the cafeteria if you have one. Try to make it a more neutral location. And when you're calm and collected, you want to, ask yourself, what do you want to achieve here? What are the issues you're having? What is it that you'd like to see? Try to figure out what you want to come out of this. Questions, comments on anything so far? I forgot to ask you that earlier. Any questions or comments? I think you can unmute yourself. Oops, no, I was in the right side. Was I in the right side? I was. We finished that one. All right, feel free to ask any questions. All right, so you're going to keep the discussion focused on the issue at hand. You want to talk about this issue and not something that happened 3 years ago or 2 years ago or a year ago. So you want to talk about one issue at a time. It's going to be really important. And so that person also doesn't feel like you're ganging up on them. You don't want to bring the kitchen sink to the argument, as they say. So just, discuss one thing at a time. Make sure you clarify it. Do research if you need to. Get emails if you need to. That's really important. You want to probe for the root cause of the conflict. Even substantive disagreements are often fueled by personal differences. Address the personal issues. Sometimes people just have personal issues against each other, and it's going to be hard to get down to that, but it's important to get down to that level. Work with the parties to explore ways they can both come out winners. Focus on common goals as well as a potential negative impact on the individuals if the conflict is not resolved. So try to find common ground, try to find common solutions, have both parties say, what they can do to try to work with this, try to help it. Follow up if the conflict is significant. You're not going to have miracles overnight, but look for indications that the individuals are acting on the agreed upon plan and taking steps forward. So it's going to be baby steps or small steps. It's not going to be resolved overnight, but definitely follow up and see how things are going, so that people feel supported. They feel like you are interested in making things happen for the department or for your coworker or for your team member, if they're below you. Make sure that they feel like you are there to support them in whatever way you can. Don't stockpile. Don't bring issues from the past into present arguments. Again, deal with the issue at hand, not something that happened a year ago or something that happened 3 months ago. You want to talk about one issue at a time. If you're having a problem with an employee, then you want to, bring them into your office and ask them questions. Ask them, what's going on? Is there a personal problem that they're having? Find out what's going on with that person and try to be as helpful as you can. Be assertive and not aggressive, and speak openly. This will encourage others to do the same, and you can get to the root cause of the problem before it escalates. All right, when you talk to someone about a conflict, it's natural to want to state your own case rather than hear out the other side, but you want to invite the other party to describe their position, ask how they might resolve the issue, and listen with empathy. Keep your tone as neutral as possible. I think tone is one of the most underrated things that you can really focus on when you're when you're talking to someone. Make sure that your tone is as neutral as possible. You don't want to convey negative feelings through your tone. And this is where you might whisper a little bit, like I talked about a little bit earlier. So keep your tone as neutral as possible too. Body language, which includes tone in your voice, is about 90% of communication. Only 10% is verbal. So about 90% of our communication is nonverbal, and tone is going to be high up there in that body language as part of body language. So just be real careful with your tone of voice. It's real important. Putting yourself in others person's shoes is an essential part of negotiation. It helps build mutual respect, understanding, and achieve outcomes that satisfies both parties. Be proactive, be empathetic when you're listening to someone. To identify the source of the conflict, you have to really listen. Paraphrase the other party's points to show you're listening and understanding them. Lean forward. That shows that you're listening. Put your shoulders back. Have some really good body language while you're sitting in that chair, like you're really listening to them. Nod once in a while. Just really active listening. Again, body language is really important during any kind of negotiation. You want to make sure that your arms aren't crossed. You're showing appropriate body language. Your tone, again, is very important. Acknowledge criticism. Some of the things the other person tells you may be difficult to hear, but remember that criticism or constructive feedback is about job behaviors and not you as a person. So keep an open mind and use criticism to help you identify areas to improve, perform, and grow. So I know criticism is very hard to hear. But if it's something that could possibly be true, try to have an open mind and work on that. Show that you understand their side, acknowledge that you're part of the problem. Try again if the conversation didn't go well. So questions, any questions, comments? All right, I know this one was kind of a quick one. Again, does anybody have anything that they would like to share or add, or something that works for you that you've tried that we haven't mentioned here that somebody else may benefit from? Feel free to raise your hand, unmute your mic, or write in the chat box if you don't have sound. Anybody want to add anything? Questions, comments? I see a hand, Elizabeth, but I don't know. Maybe you don't have sound, but feel free to team meetings are critical. You know what? Thank you for saying that. I think it's important to have meetings maybe once a week. In my last place of one of my departments that I worked at, we met twice a year, and that's really doesn't work for anything. It doesn't work for team building. It doesn't work for dealing with conflicts. It doesn't work with, if somebody feels that they're doing all the work and other people aren't. So yes, team meetings are really critical for bonding and for clarifying the work processes and airing any things that there might be misinterpretation on, or so it's really important. Team meetings are critical. In the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe you can have an icebreaker or some kind of fun team building. It gets everybody in a lighter mood, and then you can move forward. So yes, thank you so much. Anybody else? Right. You're absolutely right. I think that does help if you're friendly with each other. I couldn't agree more with that one. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else would like to add or have something to contribute? All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. I really enjoyed this. I hope you got a little bit out of that, and good luck. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.